You've prayed for financial breakthrough. You've asked God to open the windows of heaven. But let me ask you a question most people in the church are afraid to answer. What is your plan for the day after that prayer is answered? What happens when the promotion hits, the business takes off, or the investment pays out? We've all heard the horror stories. 70% of lottery winners end up broke. Why? Because getting money is a skill, but keeping it and growing it for a purpose is a completely different discipline. It's one thing to get rich. It's another thing entirely to stay rich. The world focuses on the first part, the flashy, exciting accumulation. But the Bible is far more interested in the second, how to build lasting, generational wealth that can fund your calling, bless your community, and honor the God who gave you the power to create it in the first place. Today, we're not talking about just getting a blessing, we're building a legacy. Now, the world will give you generic advice. Just save 10% and hope for the best. Cut your lattes and you'll be a millionaire. That advice isn't wrong, it's just dangerously incomplete. It's like trying to build a skyscraper with the blueprint for a garden shed. See, the world's wisdom teaches you how to build your own little kingdom of comfort and security. But the wisdom of the Word teaches you how to finance a much larger one. Here at WealthOga, our philosophy is simple. We take the most effective, proven tools from Wall Street and the world of finance, but we run them through a biblical filter. We use the world's strategies not to build bigger barns for ourselves, but to build a bigger kingdom for Him. Before we can build the right systems, we have to tear down the flawed mindsets that keep so many believers trapped. When it comes to building wealth, you're fighting a war on two fronts. The first is external: market volatility, inflation, economic shifts. The second is internal: fear, greed, and bad theology. Most people lose on the internal battlefield long before the external one ever becomes a threat. Here are the 4 flawed habits that guarantee financial failure. First is the prayer-only plan. This is the mindset that mistakes faith for passivity. You pray for a harvest, but you never plant any seed. You're waiting for a miracle, but God is waiting for you to use the mind and the resources He already gave you. This isn't faith, it's a spiritual lottery ticket. And while you're waiting for your numbers to be called, the external enemy, inflation, is silently eating away at any cash you do have, making you poorer each and every day. God honors faith, but faith without works, without a plan, without action, is dead. Second is the polar opposite, fear-based hoarding. This is the person who is so terrified of losing money that they keep every dollar locked away in a low-yield savings account. They see the stock market as a casino and investing as gambling. On the surface, it looks like wisdom. I'm being safe, they say. But spiritually, it's the modern equivalent of the parable of the talents. You're the servant who was given 1 talent and buried it in the ground out of fear. And what did the master say? He called him wicked and lazy. Why? Because you took a productive asset and made it barren. Your money is guaranteed to lose purchasing power to inflation every single year. You're not playing to win, you're playing not to lose. And in the game of finance, that's the surest way to lose. Third, we have chasing prophetic speculation. This is where greed puts on a spiritual costume. It's the person who invests their life savings into a risky crypto coin because someone in a prayer group had a good feeling about it. It's the person who falls for a high-risk business venture or a multi-level marketing scheme because it was pitched with Christian language. This isn't being spirit-led, it's being greed-led. You're abandoning timeless wisdom for a get-rich-quick shortcut. The book of Proverbs is crystal clear. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Shortcuts in finance almost always lead off a cliff. Finally, there's the most common trap of all, the blessing leak, also known as lifestyle inflation. God blesses you with a raise. What's the first thing you do? You get a more expensive car. You move into a bigger apartment. You start eating out more. For every dollar of new income, you create a dollar of new expenses. Your financial bucket has holes in it. As fast as God can pour blessings in, they leak right back out. You make more money, but you never actually become wealthier. You're constantly upgrading your lifestyle instead of upgrading your assets. And that keeps you fragile, always one emergency, one job loss away from total financial disaster. The practical application is this. This week, I want you to write a one-page Kingdom investment policy statement. It's a simple document where you define the purpose of the wealth you are building. Is it to fund a ministry? To create generational freedom? To give radically? Define your financial goals, your time horizon, and your risk tolerance. This document becomes your anchor, the constitution you turn to when the storms of the market make you feel emotional. The common pitfall for believers is saying, "It's all God's," with their lips, but acting like it's all theirs with their portfolio. They praise God during the upturns, but panic and sell in the downturns, proving they still think of it as their money to lose. A true steward trusts the owner, even when the asset value fluctuates. Pillar number 2 is the law of seed time and harvest. This is systematic investing. The biblical foundation is found in Galatians 6:7, a man reaps what he sows. This is a spiritual law that has a direct financial equivalent. God built the principle of sowing and reaping into the fabric of creation, and humanity later discovered the mathematical version of it, compound interest. The secular proof is what Einstein allegedly called the eighth wonder of the world. Let's look at a quick chart. If you sow or invest just $300 a month and do nothing else, in 30 years at a conservative 8% average return, your harvest is over $400,000. Your seeds, your contributions were only about $108,000. The rest is the harvest. It's the miracle of compounding. The practical application is to become a systematic sower. Go to a reputable low-cost brokerage like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Charles Schwab. Open an account. A Roth IRA is a great place to start, and set up an automatic recurring investment every single month into a broad, low-cost index fund ETF like VTI, which tracks the entire U.S. stock market. This is called dollar cost averaging. You're buying consistently, whether the market is up or down. You are automating the principle of sowing. The common pitfall is either wanting a harvest without sowing, that is, wanting wealth without ever investing, or sowing your seed on concrete by gambling on speculative, get-rich-quick assets. True wealth is grown, not grabbed. Pillar number 3 is the principle of the 7 streams. This is radical diversification. The biblical foundation comes from the wisest financial mind in history, King Solomon. In Ecclesiastes 11:2, he wrote, "Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land." This isn't a suggestion, it's a command to diversify. Why? Because you can't predict the future. The secular proof for this is literally Nobel Prize winning. It's called modern portfolio theory, and it mathematically proves that owning a variety of non-correlated assets dramatically reduces your risk without significantly harming your returns. One asset class might go down, but others will go up or stay stable, protecting your entire portfolio from collapse. The practical application is to stop trying to pick winning stocks and start building a winning portfolio. You can build a globally diversified portfolio with just a few low-cost ETFs. For example, a simple model could be 60% in a US total stock market ETF like VTI, 20% in an international stock ETF like VXUS, and 20% in a total bond market ETF like BND. With just 3 funds, you own thousands of companies and bonds across the globe. You are protected. You are diversified. The common pitfall here for believers is over-concentration. They put all their money into one stock, often their company's stock, or one single piece of real estate, and they call it faith. That's not faith, it's a direct violation of Solomon's wisdom. Finally, pillar number 4, the mandate for wise counsel. The biblical foundation is Proverbs 15:22. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. God never intended for you to make massive financial decisions in a vacuum. The secular proof comes from one of the world's largest investment firms, Vanguard. In their Advisors Alpha study, they quantified the value of working with a good financial advisor. They found that, primarily through behavioral coaching, smart rebalancing, and strategy, a good advisor can add up to 3% in net returns per year. The wisdom of counsel has a measurable ROI. The practical application. You need to build your personal board of directors. This should include a vetted, fee-only financial advisor who has a legal fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. It should also include a mentor, someone who is where you want to be financially, and an accountability partner who can help you stick to your plan. The common pitfall is taking financial advice from the wrong people. You listen to your broke brother-in-law, your friend who's hyping a new crypto coin, or some anonymous influencer on TikTok. Stop taking free advice from unqualified people. True wisdom is so valuable that you should be willing to seek it out and pay for it. These pillars aren't just theory, they are the framework for real-world success. Look at one of the greatest financial managers in all of Scripture, Joseph. He had a divine revelation, a dream from God about a coming famine. That was the spiritual part. But what did he do next? He didn't just organize a prayer meeting, he created and executed a practical, large-scale economic plan. He used the systems of the world, Egypt's grain industry, its storage facilities, its administration, to prepare for the crisis. He diversified his assets by storing grain in multiple cities. He implemented a system. The result? He saved not just his own family, but entire nations. That is the perfect picture of blending divine wisdom with practical, strategic execution. But you don't have to be a patriarch in Egypt to see this work on a massive scale today. Look at the modern-day example of David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby. He started the company in his garage in 1972 with a $600 loan. He didn't get a single hot stock tip or a lucky break. He simply applied this playbook. He embodied the steward's mindset, Pillar 1, viewing the company not as his own, but as God's. He has famously said, "We're stewards of what God has given us," and has structured his estate to give away 90% of his multi-billion-dollar fortune to ministry. He lived out the law of seed time and harvest, Pillar 2, consistently reinvesting and growing the business over 5 decades, turning that initial $600 seed into a harvest worth over $6 billion. His success wasn't an overnight event. It was the result of decades of patient, systematic building. David Green proved that you can build a financial empire not in spite of biblical principles, but because of them. He used the playbook, and the results speak for themselves. So you stand at a crossroads. Before you are 2 paths. The first is the path of the anxious hoper. It's the path of passivity, of praying for a breakthrough but never building the systems to manage it. It's a path of financial fragility, where your life is dictated by market swings and economic headlines. On that path, your money or lack thereof controls you. The second is the path of the wise steward. It's the path of action, of methodically building a financial fortress on the rock of God's timeless principles. It's a path where you are in control of your finances, using them as a tool to serve God, bless others, and fulfill your purpose. On this path, you don't just build wealth, you build a legacy. You control your money for God's glory. The calling on your life is too important to be underfunded. The dreams God has put in your heart are too big to be crippled by financial mismanagement. The choice is yours. Will you remain a consumer, or will you become a steward, a player, or a pawn? Your first step today isn't to go buy a stock or an ETF. Your first step is to make a decision. I want you to take out a piece of paper and at the top write Kingdom Investment Policy Statement. And then write down the answer to one question. Why do I want to build wealth? Define the purpose before you build the portfolio. It's time to stop just praying about money and start building with wisdom. If this was valuable to you, subscribe to WealthOga for more practical, faith-based financial strategy. Let's build for the kingdom together.